Because of the CTNND2 gene I mentioned in the earlier video, dogs have the opportunity to learn to a certain extent. As a Jew, you have to teach your dog not to bite and not to intimidate people. As a Jewish owner, your dog has to get used to children, and you must teach them. I recommend a regular walk past the fence playing golf for the dog. This means that the screaming, plunging monsters jumping all directions at once are behind bars, and vice versa for the parents. The dog is behind bars for them. By the way, a child can happily play with your dog and suddenly screaming panic because the parents taught their toddler to over-dramatize the situation, so that, like a Father's Day present of socks and a tie, the chance is given to daddy and mommy to play lifesaver. We know sometimes members of the only multicultural culture teach "you're the Jew," and people not realizing that you are Jewish because we don't look nor act as they've been taught, don't shapeshift into porks, suddenly get anxious when they realize that you're a Jew. Same effect. That's uncomfortable, but because of the difference between reality and propaganda, slowly reality sinks in. To uphold the mitzvah of don't do harm, prepare by training your dog to keep calm even if somebody flips out. Having a kufri dog means you are training the dog to be kufri. In some countries, for example in France, you can get a dog behavior test from a specialized veterinarian. I advise you to do that as soon as the dog is grown up and trained. Nowadays, there are bogus complaints from the population that addresses you on the street as shaitan, hoping that the rumors of the gold treasure in the broom closet are correct. Then there will be court costs of money that you don't have, and the plaintiff is annoyed that there is nothing to take and applies as revenge for the dog to be put down. Like it happened that after confiscating all possessions to pay the military bill of the conflict with the Medici, but only found a few books, Louis Descent of France burned the Talmud edition and what's left out in Wikipedia with the owners and their families in front of the Hotel de Ville alive. I'm really like the next Moshe Pippin, but I was in court because somebody claimed that he personally had been eaten by the dog entirely. And at the time my dog was a puppy and plus. So those things do happen even if you ignore it. Your dog is not your child, and it doesn't matter what anyone other of you thinks about the dog than you, because the dogs are genetically programmed by the same mutations of the genes GTF2I, GTF2IRD1, and WBSCR17 that cause in humans the William-Boyron syndrome. Which means that your dog has a permanent crush on you. There's a difference between a full-blown crush and love, because his 98-gram brain gets always an oxytocin kick when he sees you, like people get butterflies in their stomach when they're seeing me. No need to protect your dog's honor. He's not stopped falling in love with his owner. That's you. In order for your dog to become kufri, you will have the most success in relying on your dog's affection. He'll behave for your sake and integrates your empathy for fellow human beings. Dogs imitate their owners. Sometimes owners have the same haircut resembling their dogs. To cuddle your pet is social bonding. In addition, dogs produce interferons chemically similar to human babies, which is why you as Homo sapiens produce your own oxytocin with a delay of 20 minutes after schmoozing your dog, which counteracts the stress hormone cortisol, and studies of dog owners show that they live 10 years longer. According to studies, children with a pet at home are by 98% less likely to develop allergies. Dogs do have less allergies in the house as a kid.
Like three-way.
Despite all the similarities we humans reinforced in dogs through breeding over centuries, the dog does not want to be human. Its role is not another child. Often people have as only reference to beings that are depending on them and need love, their children, and therefore people compare parenting to dog ownership. It's like referring to driving a car to explain flying a helicopter. But you forget the difference. To fly a helicopter because you have a driver's license, what could go wrong? Your dog does not have the duties, but some rights of Shabbat. In Shemot Mishpatim, you read, ביום השביעי תשבות למען ינוח שועך וחמוריך ונפש באמתך והגר. The animals are allowed to rest on the seventh day, as are the employees to be fit again. It would take away the animal's right when a puppy is sold. You sell besides the right to rest on Shabbos also the relationship between dog and its owner. Therefore, selling is in here in this pasuk dvarim kisetzei in compared to selling another relationship that normally is for founding families, which is why the money earned by trading dogs cannot be spent on religious purposes. I do not count it as mokze, like touching money when you touch your dog, since he is not used for the execution of the 39 melacha. Hence the decision of Rabbi Moshe Feinstein in Orach Chaim 522, also Rabbi Shabtai Rappaport in his letter to Rav Tzvi Riesman and Rabbi Moshe. Look, bricks are used to build, tar is used to build streets, but you can walk on the streets and the shell and still be shomer. Generally, one should leave the animals alone for their right to rest on Shabbat, not to suffer. For example, you have to arrange that the cow gets milk on Shabbat, as otherwise they suffer. And so you don't have the permission to train your dog becoming a Shabbos goy, turning on the lights, because it sends the dog to work. A non-Jewish person can understand and decide to help you with stuff you are not supposed to do, as by Judaism a non-Jew not observing mitzvot is flawless in the eyes of Hashem. An animal doesn't conclude and decide. You decide for the animal. There is, at least here in Paris, the new fashion to have a huge cage as an apartment in the apartment for your dog. Like huskies have when they don't pull a sled. Don't do that. Otherwise, you cannot go for a stroll with the dog on Shabbos, because you made accommodations for a dog at work and inappropriate accommodations without a place to tinkle. But I can't put on my dog the service dog harness on Shabbos. In Halakhot Avadim 9:8, Maimonides writes that the rule of feeding the animals before your own meal does not always apply automatically. But if you disagree, there are programmable found bowl slits today. However, I would like to remind you that according to halacha, a dog has the right to get the leftovers, specifically the bones from the Sidrat Shabbat, assuming that you had a steak. Leftovers are left after your meal, so there is a custom to feed the dog after yourself, while generally you have to feed animals before you eat. But before giving blindly, you should inform yourself about the bathing method. Not the prepared bags, but what types, for example, of plants the dog can eat. Mushrooms and bicarbonate or cocoa powder, for example, are deadly toxic for the dogs. Not chicken bones, because chicken bones splinter in a manner that the dog can impale his neck with it. And the same goes for lamb. Further, a dog usually only eats once a day, and you should not forget that the dog is, by breeding variations, changed wolf. See, in a wolf pack, the alpha wolf, and who's the wolf chief in office, eats first, because in an emergency he rolls his neck out. The alpha wolf always leaves enough for the rest of the pack. And so halacha is a result of good observation, because if you eat first but the dog knows that his bowl is waiting for him, that means, translated to the dog, my boss takes care of me and wants to protect me. While a cat thinks the human eats everything, I'm going to die of starvation. And put leftovers first in the bowl for the dog, and not directly from the table, even if it's fun to give directly from the hand into the snout. In the bowl, then the bowl is posed. The dog waits, then you allow by leaving the bowl without comment. Like an alpha wolf simply goes after he stuffed himself. They don't write party invitations in wolf packs. Otherwise, you train your dog to stare at the guest plates, which might be outward. Shemat Pashas Mishpatim means that the dog does not need kosher meat, but be careful, one should generally not benefit from the fact that a calf was cooked in its mother's milk. In Varim Re'eh, not even indirectly, through dogs, because it is just as nasty to cook a calf in the material that nature intended for it, grown up, not important who is eating it. You won't have a pig problem in your kitchen, but know that pigs have a variation of hepatitis that the human immune system handles without problems, but kills a dog. Okay. I said it because watch out if you buy chewing bones for dogs sold in animal shops. You must not own chametz on Pesach, therefore there exists grain-free dog food for dogs with celiac disease. And at least 20 meters in front of the front door, a muzzle or otherwise the dog may be carrying a bun soaked in dirty water into the apartment. By the way, you won't find chametz that the dog could reach when you prepare for Pesach. A bonus. And still the dog expects bones from the Shabbos table, but no bone should be broken the night of the Seder Pesach, Passover. This is one of the reasons why the dog is not in the room in which you hold the Seder. Otherwise the dog thinks stupid Jews forgot my bone. Then there are different opinions about assistance dogs in the shill. For Feinstein, the dog assists like glasses, and you can go with glasses into the shill. For Rebbe Schneerson, in the shill, someone who is present at the kehillah can be your guide dog. On one hand, my personal opinion is, and I'm talking as a handicapped person about the experience, nobody will help you to get from the home to the entrance of the shill. On the other hand, I think that the dog is not looking for anything in the shill. He will hardly want to put on tefillin. Dogs have no religion. Furthermore, the shill is a substitute for the mitzvot in the Beis Hamikdash. And in the Beit HaMikdash, the only purpose for animals to go in was for sacrifice. People now complaining should have a look at their slaughterhouses today, which are much worse. I made a video comparing kosher, halal, and the Profam Western slaughterhouse. The temple team had to eat the meat of sacrificial animals before the end of the day. There was no killing for fun. Clearly, we do not eat dogs, and typically bring the dog into the temporary replacement of the Beis Hamikdash. It's not very loving, especially if the dog could understand. In spite of all the writings on dogs that have been left for thousands of years, some will look at you as if your booger hangs out of your nostrils. And the idea of putting a hook on the outside of the synagogue is something it seems nobody understands. That enabling a mitzvah for a handicapped person is like all mitzvahs you help for a fellow Jew to accomplish as a mitzvah by itself for you. But you can now send a link to my videos. There's a minimal learning about dogs in the yeshiva, but look at it this way. If only one thing remains in memory, that don't try to offer the cute fighting dog your hand, as food is more important than nice dogs fetch balls. Some people mistakenly imagine that coffee is an automatic feature and think a dog is coffee because small. Like big carp, angry, and small piranha, cute. People of all cultures think that way. They are usually called morons. It's an intersectional feature. I have border collies that learn quickly and are very human-friendly in good upbringing and training, and have almost no hunting instinct. Terrier are breed made for hunting, weasel and martens, so they follow their marten into the tunnels, which doesn't work in groups. In consequence, terriers, though small, had been breeded for an antisocial tendency, and if a terrier gives up, the hunter is with his gun in front of the hole, and the first who comes out, boom. So terriers are bred tending to never give up, meaning for you that in conflict they don't want to accept as an option to stand down. Which appears funny when a mini Yorkshire Terrier with a suit of a tennis ball insists to intimidate a car. Less funny realizing that small hunting dogs have sharper teeth compared to a shepherd breed if your kids are little. And it's on you to make the behavior kufri. That's more difficult with a terrier. Personally, hunting dogs, children, the mixture gives mixtures. Last but not least, leash and pick up, for not the better word, dog poop on Shabbos. Keeping the dog leash is considered to be a tiltul min hasad because you don't carry the dog. And if the dog suddenly runs away with the leash, it's clear that the dog is carrying the leash, not you. because in reality the regulations such as leash holding, a hand not further from the body and not too hoch, it's tefach wide, and that means that you should have a tetanus arm on Shabbos. And if you're a good dog owner, your dog loves to greet empathetically your friends and try to hold still. My solution is a chain as a Shabbos belt. I got the idea when I saw leather chain outfit of gay people and thought might work also with a straight dog owning white mouths. It does. And even works for Jews that are black, which suddenly are not supposed to exist. Caporas. It's a chain from a hardware store and the strap on the leash as an intermediate piece. In order to make the key a strong link, I got a key blank similar to the key, sawed up the prong and doubled the thickness of the key at the holding end, as I glued it with a strong epoxy glue together. Before gluing I enlarged the upper hole to be able to fit two small but robust carabiners. I calculated with this model that it can easily hold with 80 kilo at rest. The dog has only 15 kilogram, but first of the dog is supposed to walk, not to hang. But the border collie accelerates in a second from 0 to 50 kilometers. If you're not accustomed to metric values, that's 27 knots per hour. In case you don't get that the click is a kilometer. This makes the leash, key and belt piece of clothing, and you can walk freehand while the dog is on the leash, and you can grab the leash when you have to pull the dog in, which is in the dog's interest on Shabbos. You don't have to take out the dog follows you. Now let's talk about the duty with your doggy's duty. Children, especially at the age of 3, when they seem to be permanently on a kamikaze mission, they put objects that are on the street into their mouth. So you should pick up the poop, because according to Vayikra Kedoshim, Shenetit Zayin, you must not remain idle when there is danger to others, to human life. Now you must not carry on Shabbos, and the dog won't be weekly constipated. You use these wonderful corn plastic bags to collect. The dog is knedlach. First problem, how do I get the bags to the crime scene in real time, because behind you is the next hungry 3-year-old. And even if not, people don't get that you'll pick it up after Shabbos. They only say that's the Jew dog shit. And so you realize that some people consider that you are responsible for all excrements all over the city. They are all made by the one Jew dog. Happens to all manners that are not woke discriminated, but in real life. In winter, homeless people in Northern Europe fill their jackets with newspaper, not the pockets. The jacket has paper filling. And my jacket has, independently from pockets, an empty poop dog bag filling, but I made the access ambiguously so that the filling is like a pocket to avoid lehotzi. Secondly, do not fill the jacket after the collection campaign. If you don't think that's acceptable, they have another solution. Clearly, the bags themselves can't be a part of the Shabbos girdle, and using as a link a container, I don't think so. That's like using a rucksack as a link in the belt for transporting books on Shabbos. But then your dog can carry, a dog book bag container. Sorry, but a collar with a dog container only for Shabbos is like a troll and means you let your dog work. As every day with such a container, let's see what your dog does. Okay, but your dog has a dog tag always, even if it isn't in the military. So my solution, especially in summer, is a small leash and a few centimeters after the leash. In short, that is on the one side attached to the Shabbos girdle link, and on the other side to the dog collar. First off, clearly the dog is on the leash, plus you need anyway a smaller leash when the dog waits outside of the shill. When you found something that where you cannot touch him, though nobody understood that you want to have a hook. Advantage is that due to the believing in jinn ghost riding in your dog, radical Islamists consider touching a dog even after following Sahih Muslim Book 41, Hadith 6893, that means killing us. Even if he was successful but touched his dog afterwards by flying dog pieces, he can't go to Jinnah. That can do any dog, also a kufri dog for the kafir. But on Shabbos you can only walk 3 steps. In France, dog poop in the gutter is not prohibited. and responsible parents don't play in the gutter with their children. So after the dog has placed his artwork, you should strategically stand between the crime scene and the gutter. And it happens that your clever prefers to do his business next to a trash bin or always in the gutter. That's perfect. Until next video with this beautiful image in your mind, Gichabis.